Hi, I'm Cheryl Kinney, coming back to talk to you again today about the compensation available through a recruiting career. I'll tell you about my personal story, and then I'll tell you about some friends of mine that I've met throughout the years. Personally, when I entered the field of recruiting back in 1981, I quickly learned that my success and my income was dictated by me and me alone. So I realized if I wanted to make a lot of money, I needed to be a sponge and really listen to what I was being taught. And I did, and I made really good money. In 1989, I had my first child, and in 1992, I had my second. By 1993, I was a single mom. So you can imagine I had 2 babies. And because I was blessed to be introduced to the field of recruiting, I was able to provide a very decent life for my children. Sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit because I'm going back to when they were little, and they're teenagers and grown up now. And anyway, I was able to provide for them everything that they wanted and needed, within reason, of course. But they didn't have to do without anything. And I had a lot of friends that I grew up with and went to college with that had other careers, and they were struggling to make ends meet. And their kids didn't get the nicer things that my kids got. So I really am blessed to be able to share with you the fact that recruiting is a very lucrative career. My kids went to the best schools. They were always active in athletic programs, which most single parents can't afford to put their kids in athletics. It's just too expensive. I was always the only single mom at the baseball game or at the drill team, football halftime performance. Now let's talk about a couple of my friends. I have a friend in the recruiting business. Her name is Kay. When I was working with Kay many years ago, Kay was earning really good money, and all of a sudden she got very ill and she had to be hospitalized. Kay was actually unable to work for a period of about 5 to 6 months. And I remember back then thinking, we're going to have to pitch in, us, the other recruiters in the office, and help Kay, keep her house and keep her electricity turned on. But it turned out Kay had so much money in accounts receivables coming in that she could maintain her current lifestyle, her current level of income for that entire time she was out, just with the money that she had earned that was coming into the company. So that was a blessing there. Another story that I would like to repeat is a friend of mine, Kevin, that I met in the recruiting industry years ago at a national convention. Kevin is a top producer in a Lake Charles office, recruiting office. Kevin shared with me that the way he builds his business is that on January 1st, he's got a plan for the entire year. His plan includes taking off 2 months. So he knows he's going to build his activities and his workload and his day, and he's going to plan his work so that from January through September, October, he's done. He's done for the year. And actually, we talk quite a bit. And Kevin would tease me, and I would tease Kevin. He would call me and say, okay, well, it's only July, but I'm just about done, because he already met his income goals. He knew at that time, and this was back in the, I want to say, late 80s, early 90s, and his income was minimum 6 figures. And once he'd hit that 6-figure mark, his parents, who owned the agency he worked for, would call me, because they knew he and I were good friends, and they'd say, can't you motivate Kevin? It's only August and he's on coast, because he knows he's met his goals. So I thought that was pretty cool, that Kevin would start to coast once he met that 6-figure mark, and he was like, okay, I'll just work a little bit here and a little bit there. So I thought that was pretty neat. So just in summary, let me tell you one more story. My very first boss worked as a recruiter for a national chain of staffing companies, and when she started with the company, her goal was to not be a recruiter but to own that franchise. She worked for that franchise for a period of about 6 to 7 years. The owners did not have a staffing background or a recruiting background or anything. They had bought the franchise as an investment. So when they were ready to retire, Julie stepped in and bought that franchise. Most jobs that we work in, occupations, whatever, it's rare that you can afford to buy out your boss at retirement. And she was able to do that. To this day, she still owns that franchise. So those are just some ideas of how much potential there is in terms of compensation. You really have to be able to think big to be successful in this business, because there's so much money out there. And my objective has always been kind of simple. There's a lot of money out there, and my goal is to figure out how to get it into my checkbook, into my bank account. So just think about that. There's a lot of opportunity to make good money in this business. Thanks.